All right, Jennifer first.
I want to go back to what you said, and now it's hard for me to remember exactly what it was. But you were
Sorry.
discussing vulnerability. And so I'm wondering, because, everything you read is, you got to be more vulnerable, which is true. You're supposed to, open yourself up, not live a lie, be vulnerable. But I feel like a lot of the vulnerability that, maybe what you were trying to convey, um, is that we're not doing it as much because we don't have expectations of outcomes anymore. Like I think people on this call maybe have evolved to that where we're not expecting X, Y, and Z, so we're not really as vulnerable because we've taken our expectations and thrown them out the window.
Well, that's really true, but that's on the other side of it. Because what we're actually talking about during the dynamics of the special adolescence is that you are to be forgiven because it was what you're dealing with is the vulnerabilities of the child. And as these dynamics come up to be dealt with energetically and are overcome energetically, and we're talking on on a consensus level here, so we're painting with a pretty big brush. On the personal level, it's a very similar dynamic, but you're dealing with with the energy in such a way as to mm, make it personal to bring it home. We're not sure that we're actually answering your question in the way that you're asking it. So will you clarify just a little?
So I feel like when you have an well, if we go into childhood, you know, I think like like an internal level, we always felt that we would be protected until it didn't happen.
Hmm.
And then when it didn't
But that's
happen,
the whole thing about the adolescence, isn't it? There what happens during the adolescence, the movement from childhood to adolescence, there's that adolescent wounding. There's the whole dynamic where you feel like you are either betrayed by the parents or abandoned or some sort of energetic dynamic like that. And well, it's energetically, it's the same thing on a smaller scale as what occurred with the movement from the garden experience to the movement into what shall we say, the more of an individuated place. It was a movement from the collective more into the dynamics of individuation. The problem is, and again, this is where the forgiveness really comes in, is this you have taken this story, you have taken this dynamic of energy, and because it's been reinforced and heard so many times through so many generations, you believe it, but it's not really the truth. The truth of the matter is that if you were nurtured and being taught to understood how the dynamics of what is working on the inner realms is as important as the dynamics that's occurring in the physical, and that the dynamics of the inner realms really have to do with a connection with spirit in some way, shape, or form.
I just wanted to bring it back for a moment to when Jennifer was asking about the vulnerability, because Jennifer, you started the premise with that we're told to be more vulnerable. And I'm just want to
That's
say,
bullshit. That's the opposite of what you need to be. You see, there's so much of that 180 stuff that's going on right now. There's a lot of stuff that you're being told that the truth of the matter is it's exactly 180 degrees from what you're being told. We
I
don't
have
want
a, oh, sorry.
a moment, Natalie.
Okay.
We don't really want to get into conspiracy or the dynamics that are going on like that. But we can all agree that there's a great deal of chaos going on, and as a reaction to that chaos, you do feel vulnerable. but it's the vulnerability of your adolescent. It's not the vulnerability of who you're becoming, which is the adult, mature, experienced, wise, and also a party animal. Natalie, go ahead.
So, SOTU, my question is back to what you were just saying, like maybe 2 minutes ago or a minute and a half ago, about, you said it's all bullshit. Like, why? Thank you for that. Why does Brene Brown, because you kind of mentioned her earlier, and I've watched some of her stuff on YouTube, why does she talk so much about that then? If she's supposed to be like this emotions guru, why does she always talk about being vulnerable?
It's a simplistic dynamic of energy, you know. It's if you take the belief that in order to get through and become really spiritual, you have to surrender. It's a
Yeah.
dynamic of an extension of that belief, you know. But it is actually, as we said, it's one of those things that's 180 degrees from
Yeah.
the truth. And her intent may be right. You know, hey, most of the people who do this have been abused
Yeah.
significantly.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're gonna come into a life and you're gonna just want to cruise on through and have a good time, you're not going to give yourself any real significant trauma.
Right. Yeah.
But we gave ourselves trauma so that we could learn,
Learn.
Well,
grow
also this lifetime is an opportunity
for a tremendous amount
for
of growth.
tremendous growth. For
Yeah.
tremendous growth. Just look at it, look at yourselves with a certain objectivity and discernment. And even though you may not be perfect, look how much you've grown.
Yeah.
Look how much you understand now. Look how much more at peace you are with yourself. We're not saying it's perfect, but the only person you can really measure yourself against is you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome. You're welcome. All right.